Yeah. I think Ness had the right idea there. Enjoy the cleaning, mate. Well done.
Ness employing what I call the "oh no, the girlfriend is back from uni" special, where you got pizza and curry everywhere. It's a bit of a sight in my room, and you're like, oh no, I want her to not leave me. Let's tidy the room.
Mine's, because I have a house with my wife. Mine's the, oh, my wife is coming back from home from work in 5 minutes, and I haven't done anything all day. I've just played computer games. I better go sort the house out.
Different stages in life, but similar experiences, I would say.
Probably. Anyway, let's move on here as we have the class lists up and ready. And again, Ness is bringing Priest, as we probably anticipated. Everybody is bringing Priest realistically, but Ness himself. And actually going to ban away Coldhands Priest to leave him with the Druid, Mage, and Rogue in that lineup there. Ness going to be bringing the Shaman, Priest, and Druid himself. So pretty standard lineups, like you said. I think Ness bringing the bog standard EU lineup, as it were, and Coldhands adding in the Mage for a bit of variety.
A little bit of variety. For Ness, it's an interesting ban, because if I was to look at this lineup that he's bringing, that is, as I've said, very popular at the moment, I would probably ban the Priest just at a first glance, because the Shaman sucks against it, the Priest is a mirror, the Rogue, I mean, I think if you're a good Priest player, you've got a really good shot in that matchup, and the Druid is probably slightly favoured, but about even. But the main thing being the Shaman really sucks against Priest, but it's not that bad against Druid. But at the Summer Championships over the weekend, the tactic to go for was to ban the Druid. But Ness going against that, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for how the Druid goes for Coldhands, and whether or not it might have been slightly better to get rid of it. Obviously it's Conquest, so it can only do as good as winning one series, but it's still important as to make sure you shore up all weaknesses in your lineup.
Absolutely, and I think we'll all be paying attention to how that Druid deck does, because obviously it could secure a win for Coldhands. So not just you, Derek, myself will also be looking at the screen and seeing which cards are played and if he gets the win.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
If you were listening to me cast, you'd probably think that I was casting something completely different, because I have probably said about three words that have made sense this entire broadcast. But again, I'm just filling in, you know. Don't blame me. I'm the fill-in guy.
You're doing a smashing job.
Thanks, bud. That's all I needed to hear, just to boost my confidence. Derek Brown, telling me I'm doing well.
Seal of approval. The approval bell.
Well, it's not being used for bloody banter today, so, so we're going to use it.
We'll have to make do. It's now the approval bell.
Every time a play gets approved, it's
solid.
Approval bell.
Come back, Dan.
Help, he's too serious for me.
So to get things going, we've got a pretty decent Rogue hand, the Firefly. Obviously, you want to get the one drop going. I think I agree with going for the Firefly first over the Swashbuckler, because you're going to get unlikely something you can play right away, and maybe you can get value with the patches just by attacking it directly into something. But for the Shaman, this is a really nice starting hand, getting things going with even Coin Primal Fin Totem, if you're not afraid of backstab, wouldn't be too bad either.
Coldhands, I'm not surprised he's got Coldhands. He's got nothing in his room. Maybe not even a radiator. It's just like a dead ice-cold box where he sort of meditates and plays Hearthstone at sub-zero temperatures. So 0
out of 10 for Coldhands' room.
I mean, it's not really got much going, has it? It's just some coving, a flat plaster roof, and some magnolia walls. I mean, you can't get any more bland than that.
I think you pan the camera down slightly and you see, like, you know, tiger rugs and, like, glorious, nice recliners.
To a chaise longue,
as I believe the French call it.
I got it. Close enough. Mysterious would be telling me off right now.
I think you'd be a bit busy laughing.
He's got a couple of servants, grapes next to him, just whenever he needs to pick one off, ready for his next consideration in his Hearthstone play.
So we're keeping an eye out for clapping last series. Eyes on the prize for grapes this time.
Nice. We'll have to take it. What?
So here we're in a spot where before the pickup of the Bloodsail Corsair, the Primal Fin Totem wasn't looking amazing. A little bit more likely to be killed off because we still haven't seen the patches come down. It could be coming down from Coldhands in the form of Captain or Swashbuckler right now. So the Primal Fin Totem a little bit more likely to die. That is, however, until the Bloodsail Corsair came into hand. Now you can go Primal Fin, Coin Bloodsail, kill off the weapon and the 1/1 with patches. And although you can't then go into Coin Jade Lightning into Jade Lightning, I think it's worth it. You've still got a smooth curve on the next turn with Flame Tongue Totem, Flame Elemental, or Hero Power Flame Ele. it works just out so nicely here.
Yeah, and going super wide on the board against the Rogue isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
They don't run things like Fan of Knives anymore. Dealing with tokens is a bit harder for them. They've got to expend things like backstabs and SI7 agents, as well as South Sea deckhands and the big tools that you force them to use. But Ness, not interested in clearing off the weapon or the 1/1. He's just going to play his 1/2 Flame Elemental here.
Yeah, so I imagine the thinking is that the patches in combination with Flame Tongue is a really strong combination. You can kill off a 3 health minion, be it SI or the South Sea Captain were that to come down. But a Flame Tongue picked up one of the best cards I think you could possibly get here.
I think absolutely, and now suddenly Coldhands is the one in control of the board. This could have been avoided for Ness. Could have been avoided for him in a lot of ways. Obviously, that can't really avoid the Flame Tongue, and still would have ended up with a pretty decent board regardless. But you know, trading in with a dagger, you could have got rid of the other Flame Elemental. It would have been something that you could have fought back from. But now Ness is left without the option of the Coin Jade Lightning. Tar Creeper isn't awful for him, however. He can just slam that on the board and say, well, what you got, buddy? Will mean you can trade 2 3/1 tokens in and get rid of it, but regardless, not one of the great situations for Ness to be in. He could also use the Blood Sail, like he said, but don't get value on the weapon, and patches can come out and trade into one of them.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth killing off the Flame Tongue totem here with the patches. Do you want to hear my new slogan for Coldhands in the light of Flame Tongue being drawn?
Go on then.
Cold hands, warm tongue, because it's a Flame Tongue.
Nice.
I think you should say that to like go down to a bar and be like, I've got cold hands, but a warm tongue, and then watch them run.
I'm never going to say that to anybody in my life. Just so you know. Like you said, he had the option of Bloodsail Corsair with his own Flame Tongue to basically mirror the board, but then trade into that Flame Tongue totem. But looks like he's happy to take that trade here. Although there is a Spellbreaker that could just come down and allow Coldhands to push damage to face if he really wanted to. Or even, well, I mean, the trade's the same if he Spellbreakers or not.
Yeah, maybe worth it just for the minion that you get on the board in the Spellbreaker. I mean, in terms of silence, unless they get something big off an Evolve, Aya, maybe one of the totems like Flame Tongue, but if you stay ahead on board, you can kill off the totems anyway just by having minions on board. And I think it's more important to get the minions developed on board, make sure you're ahead going into Bittertide Hydra.
Yeah, and again, one of the best ways to deal with a Shaman is just control the board as best you can. You know, if you are the one in control of the board against the Shaman, you see that the comeback mechanics are limited. If you're speaking about, you know, some of the comeback mechanics we've seen, Dan had the comeback mechanics with his Shaman with the Doppelgangster into Evolve, but that is a slim line of play that only occurs in sort of minimal instances, and Coldhands feels pretty comfortable to go in and just slam the Bittertide Hydra down.
Yep, it's only a little 1/1. You're very, very happy going for it here. Double Galactic Crawler coming a little bit too late for Coldhands, but really not bad. The South Sea Captain, the patches has been pulled from the deck because we've seen the Swashbuckler come down already, so you're not going to get the double value with Galactic Crawler right now, but it's looking like over the next couple of turns, maybe we see a powerful couple of Galactic Crawlers.
Well, it was actually better that Coldhands traded those 2 pirates into the silenced Tar Creeper, because actually that would have been a double Galactic Crawler with a Bloodsail Corsair generating patches there for Ness if he wanted, so that would have been a really good swing turn for him.
Well, that would have been on the turn before, so it only would have been 1 Galactic Crawler.
Sorry,
but
yeah,
you're right, it still worked out well for Coldhands, even if it was just the 1 Galactic. So even with the double buff on the Flame Tongue, still not enough to kill off the Bittertide Hydra. Probably going to be looking in a situation where we slam the Hydra to face, maybe killing off the Flame Tongue with a Valspine Slayer, because you're probably not looking to be too afraid of anything else the Shaman can throw down. Maybe they have the Doppelgangster Evolve, but with only 2 cards left, I think you can't afford to be that conservative with your play.
Yeah, you've got to, well, he is going to be conservative. Had lots of options, he's going to end up Valspining the 3/4 on board, just to control board that much, as much as he can. I mean, Wrath of Air into Jade Lightning is never a fun situation. Doesn't even need it because he can just trade 1 in there. And will actually fight even just the smallest amount back onto board. And suddenly that Bittertide Hydra is going to say goodbye.
Yeah, so going for the hero power after, because he wanted to get in the extra damage anyway by attacking in, probably still worth going for it first anyway, just so you can reevaluate if you know you're going to be hero powering that turn, but I guess you get in a little bit of extra damage.
7 is Bone Mare turn, and obviously the Flame Elemental is a very good target for Bone Mare.
Oh, yes.
Nice to jam some damage to face. This is where you just stop respecting the board. You don't want to trade your 5-6 into the 2-2. You have Cold Blood and Leroy Jenkins in hand. It is a win condition for you at some stage in the game. That's 10 damage that you can just generate from hand as it is.
I mean, this, short of a turn like we saw with Dan up against Big Ben, where you get the perfect Doppelgangster into Evolve with High Mane and Bone Drake and all that crazy nonsense, I think this is probably looking to be over in Coldhands' favour, because he's got, what, the 13 damage on board plus the 10. It's already creeping in on lethal, I believe 1 off on the following turn. And then the Shaman is just never going to be coming back from that, because he still has to regain the board completely, which he probably won't be able to do. And you've still got the dagger after the fact. Maybe you don't go all in on the damage right now, but it doesn't really matter all too much. As long as you're keeping the board relatively clear and pushing face for a good amount of damage, you've won.
You're very close to lethal here as well with Coldhands. He's got 1 off lethal, I believe. It's literally just 1 off lethal for him, because
I believe it is.
And you can then set up for a guaranteed lethal with SI7 agent next turn, because you don't actually have any self-healing apart from Death Stalker Rex, or whatever it is.
Death Stalker Rex, though.
That's
oh,
the
no,
Hunter one.
sorry.
Death Knight Thrall, but...
Thrall Deathseer.
That's the one, Thrall Deathseer. We got there in the end. So you can basically set up with a guaranteed SI7 agent to face. If you wanted to, you can deal 24 damage straight off the bat. I mean, how hard is it you get punished? I mean, even with Evolve from Doppelgangster, you know, generating things like Sunwalkers, like you said, it's very difficult to sort of defend against that massive 2 damage to face. The lethal 2 damage to face.
Yeah.
This way works as well, but it's a little bit more vulnerable to taunts potentially, but with this kind of board, you don't really care.
Yeah, I definitely agree with this play. You've still got the burst of Leroy into Cold Blood. You've got a board that's very difficult to deal with.
Hey, he would have got punished.
There's the Thrall Deathseer. He did clear off the board a good amount. So, yeah, probably going for the... Here, there's actually a lot of different choices here, because you can either have both the minions on board be an extra minion cost higher with Evolve. You could upgrade the rubbish one with your second Thrall Deathseer, or you can just have a whole nother minion. This is probably the best chance of getting a taunt, but it don't work out.
None of those are taunts, and that's just lethal damage on board here. Ness will take cold comfort in his victory, and I think that's very fitting for Coldhands.
Yeah, it is actually. Kind of fitting in with the Frozen Knights of the Frozen Throne theme.
And also just because he said cold and his name's got cold in it, that's what I was going for. You know. I'm a simple man. I see cold in 2 places. I link them together.
I'm a role player. What can I say?
Yeah, you are. You are a real role player. And that is the win here for Coldhands. I think, again, Ness just, as Shaman, if you lose board early on, it's very difficult to come back in. Yeah. Like we said, the only real comeback is that magical Doppelgangster into Revolve turn, which we saw Dan pull off against, Dan against Ben. He pulled that off in his only win of the series. So, you know, it's stomp on him while he's down, right? But regardless, it's a win here for Coldhands, and now Ness going to be fighting with one of his other decks, maybe even just queue the same deck in, we'll see. Again, it doesn't really matter in Conquest what you queue, you've got to get a win with every deck regardless.
Yeah, I think for Ness there were actually a couple of decisions where I questioned his play in the early turns, like not coining out the Blood Cell Corsair as soon as he could, because, you know, his play would have been better against a potential SI or Captain, but the play where you coin out the the Corsair as quickly as possible was good right there. That was 100% a good play. So I question Ness's play at the start there. But to get things going here for Ness, obviously the Jade Druid and a pretty good hand to get things going. You're up against the Tempo Mage, which when they have a Mana Worm on 1 into Primordial Glyph on 2 isn't the best matchup. But when you have close to the Druid nuts, it's hard to lose.
He's gone full macadamia here. Ness has got a lot of nuts in his hand.
He's cashewing in his prize money as we speak. Okay.
Ain't nothing but peanuts for Ness right now.
And we're done.
Taking this hand all the way to Brazil with those giant
Literally
nuts.
Doesn't even make sense.
The Brazil nuts, they're big nuts. I was about to finish. I don't know. We exhausted the nuts. But Ness hasn't. He's got a lot of them.
Yeah. I'm glad we stopped because you were starting to drive me up the wall nuts. Okay, there we go. That was the last one.
I can't think of any more,
yeah,
so I
win.
I can't even continue the chain. I've exhausted all the nut varieties that I know, which happens to just be cashew, macadamia, Brazil, and peanut.
A cultured man.
maybe monkey nuts, which are basically
the same thing again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here for the mage, I think Firelands Portal is probably the way you're looking to go. Vaporize.
Walnuts. That's another one.
What?
Chestnuts. That's another one.
Can you do the thing that you were here to do?
No, you've sidetracked me to nuts.
You're going in full-time into nuts casting now.
I was just thinking I could actually think of some more nut varieties than just 4. I just wanted to tell, I just wanted to let you know that that was possible.
What did I just say, Keenan?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I thought so.
Carry on. He's got the turn 3. I mean, coining the wild growth into Jade Blossom pretty much is the standard when you've got the both of them in hand and the coin. Yeah.
On the major side, though, I was looking at the primordial glyph. You obviously...
You were doing your job.
Mate, let me speak. You've got the Vaporize, which activates the Medivh's Valet. I question if it's quite worth it, because you've kind of got turns mapped out for the moment anyway in Arcane Intellect on the following turn. This is obviously more aggressive on the board, and maybe it's worth going for that before your opponent can get down a big spreading plague. But the Firelands Portal would have been a lot more mid-game power. Getting it down on turn 5 could have really swung this in the favor of the mage.
Wow, we see Ness choosing to just get on board with double Jade Idol here. No, it's not. It's his first Jade Idol because he got the first one from Jade Blossom.
Nice.
He has got the Galaka Crawler, though, again, taking heavily into an anti-pirate style deck.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be surprised to see if he includes 2 of those in this deck as well. It's very interesting. However, you can see Coldhands has got options here. He's got the Arcane Intellect. He's got Medivh's Valet, which gives you an excellent trade on board as well.
So it's actually... Now that I look at it, the Vaporize, it's really interesting how much of an impact it's had already, because, your opponent has to attack into your face to get rid of the secret, so they have to have a minion stick on board, which if you're activating both Medivh's Valets is not going to happen. He still doesn't know what this is. He's ruled out Counterspell, Spellbender, he's played a minion, so it's not Polymorph, Mirror Entity, or Frozen Clone, so it's getting down to either the Ice Barrier or Ice Block, or this exact Vaporize, I think.
Coldhands has good options. He's got the option of Arcane Intellect, as well as Fireball. Also just can slam a Cobalt Scalebane, trade in, and then suddenly generate a 5/3.
I think I prefer the Bane, the Scalebane probably. It's just such a powerful development of stats on the board.
It's really good against Druid as well in general. Druids struggle to deal with this kind of thing apart from Ultimate Infestation, and you can see Ness is a couple of turns away from that.
Yeah, even if he had it. Obviously, the Medivh the Guardian is the play right now, just far and away the most power you could develop. But there's the perfect answer in Fireball and Ping.
Wow.
You push another 10 to the face, and your board's getting stronger because of the effect of Scalebane. It then pretty much has to be, I don't know, Wrath, Spreading Plague, Malfurion, something to stop this from just killing Ness, Ness on the spot.
You just jam face, right? You've got so much burn damage. I mean, you clear up this, or Frostbolt this, and then just slam face. Or trade, I suppose you could, but then you stop getting effectiveness of the Scalebane.
So yeah, you're able to push forward, not lethal damage on the following turn because you just don't have the mana. You're kind of leaving yourself vulnerable to the top deck of Malfurion the Pestilent, but even then, he can't clear off your board with that top deck, anywhere near it, in fact.
I actually agree that I think maybe Fireball Ping was just safer. Like, you get rid of a 7/7 on board, you can still start jamming damage to face.
Yeah. But then again, maybe you leave yourself more vulnerable to Malfurion the Pestilent there, because all of a sudden there's taunts in the way, so you've used up a burn spell which can go through it, and by getting in the more damage immediately, the armor becomes more relevant. So really tough.
Frosthands, he's basically one off, I think, at this point. He's got 9 damage with the Fireball Frostbolt. He's got 4 damage on board.
Yeah, I mean,
he's one off.
Yeah, you just go for it here. With the... You do have a Vaporizing play. It's not an ice block, but you're not going to die on the following turn. If you will be one off lethal, so so if he has Malfurion the Pestilent, he can play it and hero power up. So he's put himself in a situation where he does not have guaranteed lethal on the following turn.
He doesn't lose to Ultimate Infestation, though, which is another important card that he doesn't want to lose to. So
it's over now. He can't go Malfurion into hero power.
So this is done, and Coldhands is going to get the second win here. Double Galaka Crawler is teched in for Ness, but it's just not enough.
That's definitely a game to go back and analyze, though, because I think around turns 5 and 6, Coldhands had a lot of options of things like whether to Fireball Ping, whether to go Arcane Intellect. He went with the Arcane Intellect, probably to play around taunts, I guess. But I think he could have put himself in a situation where he had no chance of losing, where with this play, there was an out for Ness.
Yeah, and it was a small out, but regardless.
Yeah. Well, that's the mark of going from a good player to a great player. You take good RNG and putting yourself in good spots, and you lock those games out, because over the course of this game, obviously he probably wasn't going to lose that game, but if you play 100 games, 1,000 games, eventually it's going to catch up on you.
Yeah, there was one card that obviously, like you said, bailed Ness out of that situation. That one card was just not in hand. Coldhands can rest comfortable. It was a fairly well played game from Coldhands. I think he made mostly the correct decisions going through, like you said, maybe some turns to go back and analyze. I just think at that point, Ness just wasn't able to contend on board, just didn't have the ability to sort of fight back against especially the Cobalt Scalebane, which is very difficult as a 5/5 for the Druid to deal with easily. And was just cleaned up from that point forwards, meaning that these series have been flying by, and Coldhands is now 2-0 up, needs just a win with his Druid, which we can imagine is likely Jade Druid, given the sort of the spec of his lineup. And those Galaka Crawlers, unless this is his aggro Druid, they're just going to be dead in every single deck that Ness is running.
True.
And he's just River Crocolisks that you're running. 2
of them in every deck. He's really going to be looking to throw them away. And I guess that brings it back to the point that in Conquest, not all victories or losses are created equal. The fact that Ness seems to be targeting the Rogue with double Galaka Crawler, the Shaman, which has a really good shot of locking down the early game, the fact that the Rogue got through straight away is such a victory for Coldhands. Absolutely, and it just means that now, like we said, Ness has just got these cards in his deck that do nothing. And like we said, unless it's an aggro Druid, which it isn't, not. Ness is just not going to get any value out of his essentially River Crocolisks now. So going all in instead on the Priest here, throwing away the Novice Engineer. That's kind of seems to be the way that the deck is going, because, you know, whether you play it or throw it out of your hand, it's still the same kind of thing. You're cycling through your deck a card. And just thinking, I don't need to play it on turn 1 here. I guess I'd rather look for some other options. And also the fact that it's actually pretty good later on in the game after you've activated your hero power fully with Raza and Anduin. So I like just looking directly for Raza and Anduin in this matchup, because, don't get me wrong, those are the cards you need. 1/1s don't really contest board heavily early game. So against aggro, keeping it doesn't really... Yeah, you're playing something on turn 2, but you're playing something that just does very little. And Ness, you can see here, option of Shadow Visions if he wants. Kind of no idea what he will be searching for. Maybe just looking for a general utility. Another Dragonfire Potion in this matchup probably wouldn't go amiss. Yeah, something like that. You know, you might take a pint-sized potion if that were offered you to go with the Shadow Word Horror. Power Word Shield is an obviously really nice one to get as one of your few draw options to get yourself that little bit closer to Raza and Anduin. But one thing I wanted to touch on here from the Druid is the keeping of the Jade Idol off the mulligan, unless he threw it back and got the other copy in the same spot. Do you like going for that here, getting the Jades going, or would you rather just get that ramp going as quick as you can? I quite like tempoing against, but then again, you know that there are board clears for Ness, and Jades early on are susceptible to that kind of board clear. Given this hand, I think you just start ramping as quickly as you can and get that Maya Keeper out, ramp up. Yeah. Because you just don't have anything else to do at this point. And you know, Mark of the Lotus isn't going to get useful. I mean, the spreading played Mark of the Lotus into the Priest doesn't really see much value. And now that you've got 2 Maya Keepers, you probably just think about coin Maya Keeper into Maya Keeper the following 2 turns. It's probably the way it's going to be going. We could see another turn of just waiting so that you can go Maya Keeper, and save the coin. Maybe get an Ultimate Infestation 1 turn earlier, especially because, as you said, early board development is not that relevant. The Priest has a whole bunch of ways to clear off what you're doing. With the Wild Growth as well, you don't need to Maya Keeper. Maya Keeper gets you a 3/3 on board, but realistically, like we said, just getting a 3/3 on board means very little in these kind of matchups. It's not going to be winning the game. It will eventually get dealt with one way or the other by the Priest, and can pretty much heal through the majority of the damage too. Yeah, I think this is the play I was actually looking at, though. I mean, you're going to 5 mana next turn, no matter which ramp spell you play here, but Wild Growth gives you options the next turn as well if you really need them. And maybe you will need them with the Priest of the Feast coming down. Nourish is not a bad card to have. He could literally ramp up 3 mana this turn if he wanted to. The only problem with ramping up 3 mana is he doesn't currently have
a way to use that mana. If he had Ultimate Infestation in hand, absolutely go for it. But right now, doesn't really have the mana to use, and maybe Nourish just becomes better as a card draw tool, given that he's got Maya Keeper and Wild Growth in hand anyway.
I think I could very possibly see that. The modern iterations of Jade Druid, they have a lot of draw, but it's not the situation where you were back in the day with Azure Drakes and stuff like that, where it felt like almost every card in your deck was drawing. Now I think you've got so much ramp that on the next turn you can afford to go for something like Wild Growth into Nourish for draw.
Quite like what Coldhands did here, by the way. Knowing that you're not going to get the massive swing turns of Spreading Plague into Mark of the Lotus easily versus a Priest. Yep. So happy to use it on 3 minions. 3 minions is probably where you're going to get a lot of value out of it regardless. Coldhands is going to use that Nourish to start generating cards. I think that was the correct play because, like we said, there's nothing to use on the high mana levels here for Coldhands. So ramping up, whilst obviously it's lovely to be ahead in mana, if you've got nothing to spend that mana on, there's no point being there.
Exactly. You can find yourself in the situations where, because your Jades are not that big, every top deck is not that good. You'd really just be looking for Wrath, Nourish, Ultimate Infestation, card draw effects like that to get you closer to the rest of your deck. But here, going for the Wrath for draw, probably the right play. You know, you don't need to remove too many minions against the Priest. You just want to get that cycle going so that you can, well, not even necessarily hit Ultimate Infestation now. Start hitting those Jades.
Yeah, you can see Jade Blossom and Jade Spirit in hand. They're going to start generating Jades. Actually, Ness picks up one of those key cards. The Shadow Reaper Anduin is there. You can use Spirit Lash just to clear off one of these 4/2s. Again, probably not worth expending a Dragonfire Potion at this point. Just deals with one of them. 8 damage was quite threatening on board, so just getting rid of one of it and halving it is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. The fact that these minions are fairly scary, but the opponent's Jades are still at, what, 2/2, 3/3? They're still pretty small.
They are.
So you can afford to just use the Spirit Lash here and save the Dragonfire Potion for when they get up to the 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, that kind of range where it becomes significantly more impactful. Even though you have 2 Dragonfire Potions, I agree it wasn't quite worth it there. And here for the Druid, he's basically just wondering, how do I develop as much onto the board as possible while not leaving myself so vulnerable to AoE that I can do nothing on the following turn?
Suddenly the big boys are coming out here. Ultimate Infestation. Still a full hand to work with, though, so it's not a great place, actually, for Coldhands, because you don't really want to be burning cards if you can help it. We all saw how that worked out at the weekend. I think it was Jason Show. I think he burned both of his Jade Idols. There was a very small percentage, and I think he burned his Jade Idols in the matchup. So you can see that a lot of people will remember that can be fairly difficult if you Ultimate Infestation and burn too many cards. And I think with this amount of cards in hand for Coldhands, whilst it deals very nicely with Lyra, it might be too risky to go for.
Yeah, especially because we've seen already 1 Jade Idol played. You definitely don't want to be playing quite that much, especially because the swipe does such a good job. And against the Priest, you don't need to be playing Ultimate Infestation as quickly as possible. Your plan A is just to get Jades going as quickly as possible. And we can see that's going to be happening over the next few turns. We've got Eye of Blackpaw. We could even see a Jade Idol being played for a minion if Coldhands thinks he can close out the game quickly enough. But very possibly we see the Jade Idol for Shuffle instead, especially because he's got the Ultimate Infestation to draw those Jade Idols back once again.
Ness actually facing a difficult decision here because it feels like it's almost just either a Holy Fire or a heal and pass turn for him, because everything in his hand he kind of wants to save for bigger value. Shadow Reaper Anduin for when those Jades get out of control. Dragonfire for, like you said, when they're just a bit beefier than 3/3s. Could Shadow Word Horror to just clear up 1, but if he has a pint-sized potion, he might be desperately holding out for that combo too. It's a tough turn for Ness. Holy Fire and heal, or just heal and pass, feels like the only play.
Yeah, I think you're probably not wanting to expend Holy Fire quite yet, because you kind of want that for after the combo's done. I mean,
you're going to have to spend something, right? You're going to have to use... I feel like you have to use something this turn.
I don't even know if you do, though. Like, you're not under that much pressure, and you can wait for your opponent to develop more Jades, because if they're going to kill you off anytime soon, they're going to have to develop more Jades. But like I was saying earlier on in the day, this is the kind of tough situation as the Priest. If you had played Raza already, you wouldn't even think about it. You slam that Shadow Reaper Anduin as quick as you can, you probably win the game over the next 2 turns. But in this spot, you kind of want to get the battle cry value. It might be quite important. There's a really small window when you don't get the Raza Anduin on curve against the Jade Druid, where you can hopefully kill off a couple of 5-6 attack minions, and then hope and pray that your Dragonfire potions will draw you enough, gain you enough time to find Raza. Then you go for the kill.
Coldhands can slam down Jade's Extraordinaire here, and he'll generate up to a 5-5, and then Aya obviously granting him a 6-6 on death. It's not a bad play for him. He has the option of Malfurion if he really wants, but I just feel like you don't want to overcommit into Dragonfire Potion. That's the thing for you know, Coldhands. So slamming Aya and Jade Spirit might feel like it's just a little bit too much, but even just Aya here plays a little bit around board clear because she will then leave a pretty hefty Jade afterwards.
I think I definitely like saving back the Jade Spirit here because the fact that your opponent did nothing on the last turn and they've played a Shadow Visions, which they're fairly likely going to be going for a Dragonfire Potion. I like holding back a little bit here. If they go for the DFP here, you're still not too sad because you've got the refill in the Jade Spirit and you've still got a Jade left behind. And it's worked out nicely for Coldhands.
Yeah, and there is the first Dragonfire Potion. Gonna save the Shadow Word Death. Galaka Crawler again just dead in hand almost. And that's a 5-5 on board now for Coldhands. He's seen one Dragonfire Potion. I'm wondering if Ness used the one that he gained from Shadow Visions just to sort of say, okay, well, that's the one that I got from Shadow Visions. It might still be in my deck. You know, I'm trying to not let Coldhands believe he's overextending.
So I think right here, you've got the Jade Idol, and you really want to do one option of play it for the minion, and you really want to do the other option of shuffling it into your deck. If only there was some way you could do both of those effects.
I couldn't think of any way that that would be possible.
Damn it. Guess we just concede.
But maybe Coldhands has. He's got this card that I've only seen on a couple of occasions. It does allow my opponents to do really overpowered things sometimes. Fandral Staghelm, I think it's called.
Ah, yes, that guy. Whether or not he goes for it on this turn is another question. I really wouldn't hate it this turn, but I guess what he's thinking is, I'll save shuffling in for the moment, because I don't really want to top deck a Jade Idol.
He's got Mark of the Lotus in hand, so with this is another good opportunity to just get a bit of value out of Mark of the Lotus here if he really wanted.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I just start jamming damage to face with the hero power as well.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the main thing you need to be looking at here is that you want to dump cards from your hand, then go for Fandral, Jade Idol, and then draw with Ultimate Infestation.
I think Coldhands missed an attack with his... Unless he used it right at the start. He might have used it right at the start. Oh, okay.
There's a fun little bar there on the side that fills you in.
My eyesight is too poor to see that, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
That's okay, bud.
I'm like an eagle.
You're like, well, you know, you don't miss a play, my friend. You don't miss a play. That's probably why he wasn't considering Mark of the Lotus then, because he'd already attacked with the Jade Idol.
Very possibly. Yeah, and you kind of want to be doing it on the same turn that you're attacking in with
get the value out of it, yeah.
You're probably not too afraid of Dragonfire Potion because you've already seen one. I think it was the one that was played from the Shadow Visions.
Yes.
Which from Ness, you know, you might be thinking, why play the one that, you know, you've generated from your deck? But because it's a card you're pretty likely to go for, I think I can definitely see the reasoning from Ness. But at the same time, maybe it would have been better to leave your opponent guessing. But I mean, in this situation, Coldhands clearly doesn't think his opponent has the Dragonfire Potion.
I don't think this is a bad Holy Fire turn for Ness. Dragonfire may be overextending just a little bit, but it's not a bad Holy Fire turn if I were Ness.
Well, holding it back. Oh no, going for it here, a complete board clear. Didn't want to go with the Dragonfire Potion, which is interesting because from here on in, Jades are out of range. You're going to have to find some other way of beefing up the damage. You can obviously go for, after you've played the Shadow Reaper, Hero Power Dragonfire. Hero Power that becomes even more potent, obviously, after you've found the Raza in addition to that, but still nowhere in sight for Ness. Maybe if he can keep a clear board over the next couple of turns, he can slam down a Prophet Velen, but I just don't think there's going to be any signs of slowing from Coldhands. No,
and again, like you said, we are now past that crucial stage where Jades are going to be dealt with nicely by the Dragonfire Potion, and suddenly 7/7's coming out on board. And that's a huge amount of damage that Ness has now got to contend with, and he still hasn't found Shadow Reaper. Pint size, it will do little bits. It will get rid of the Jade Spirit and Fandral, but I mean, you're playing catch up now, and the race is getting very far ahead of you.
Yeah. Well, with the pint-sized potion, the Shadow Word Horror has already been used, so it's not even really doing that anymore. You're going to have to find a Shadow Word Horror, a Shadow Word Pain, sorry, for it to be useful at all, really. I think it probably is now time to go for the Shadow Reaper Anduin, because the thing is, you will be facing down bigger boards throughout the series of this game, most likely, but you know, this is big enough. Like, you're going to die to this board probably anyway. It doesn't matter from here on in whether it's 30 stats or a billion stats on board.
Yeah, and it is going to be used. There are no current Jade generation tools for Coldhands in his hand right now, which means for the moment Ness actually keeps himself moderately safe.
Yeah. And really no good options at all outside of Ultimate Infestation, which would burn you 2 cards right away. Oh, sorry, 1 card right away and then another afterwards. So you'd end up burning 2 cards if you play the Ultimate Infestation.
And they could be key cards like Jade Behemoth that we just haven't seen yet.
That's true, yeah. The thing is, no matter what with that play, you will be... There is no way you will burn every single Jade Idol, because you've got 3 in the deck, and you burn 2 of them at most. So you will, no matter what, have the potential to go infinite if that is the plan. And maybe that will be relevant if your opponent doesn't have the Raza soon. But to be honest, I think because you've got the potential for Mark of the Lotus, maybe you just go Spreading Plague for 1, Mind Control Text, and then Mark of the Lotus, just try and scramble together some resemblance of a board so that you're not burning cards.
These Spreading Plagues are dead in your hand right now, so you're not going to get much value out of them over the course of this game, and I think that was the play that I was thinking about as well. This is a really good Mark of the Lotus turn. Again, it's difficult to get major value in a matchup like this out of Mark of the Lotus and Spreading Plague. It's a pretty hefty board that Ness is going to have to deal with once more.
Yep, absolutely. We could see a complete board clear now that the hero power has been activated, or an even better complete board clear now that Blood Mage Thalmos has been drawn.
Also, that play did free up card slot positions for Ultimate Infestation for next turn for Coldhands. So, you know, he sets it up. And I think Ness realistically has just that one play to consider, and he's going to do it.
Good play.
Approval bell.
Approval.
We haven't approved of anything else, but we approve of that.
Wish my dad had an approval bell.
Oh. Was it tough? Tough life.
Yeah. I just realized he might be watching, so it was a joke, Dad. You're great. Only banter. The banter bell's back!
Oh, great banter with the dad. And here comes the cards from Ultimate Infestation. Jade's Supremo. And that's going to be a hefty board next turn if Ness doesn't find Raza this turn.
Oh, yes. You've seen the Shadow Reaper Anduin come down. No Shadow Word Death as of yet, but that's only one of your Jades being killed off. So, I mean, even if you just went for all 3 of these Jades right away, you know, you're kind of afraid of some kind of a board clear, but what could that actually be? You've seen double Dragonfire Potion, the Anduins come down, as I've said. It's only really the Shadow Word Death that you're afraid of.
Power Word Shield is feeling like it's on the cards, I think, for Ness here.
I mean, you just need Raza now.
You need Raza right now.
You know, he's only got 1 draw. If he gets it off the top next... I mean, even getting it off the top next turn is a bit too slow. You kind of need to play it right now so you have the full mana.
It needs to be this card. It is not this card.
It is not this card. He can make a pretty beefy minion, so maybe this is a way of fighting back against some of the Jades. I mean, if he gets Raza as the top card, he's still got 5 mana available. Maybe with the Holy Smite, Pint-Sized Potion, and even the Mind Blast and this Radiant Elemental, if necessary, he can get in a lot of pings with the hero power just to clear the board.
You've got an 8-8 Jade, a 9-9 Jade, and a 10-10 Jade that could come down this turn, though, from Coldhands, and that requires probably more pings than you can even comprehend.
Yeah.
You've seen Shadow Visions, you've seen 2 Dragonfire Potions, you've seen Shadow Reaper Anduin, you've seen Shadow Word Horror. What has the Priest actually got left at this point? I don't think there's anything.
Having said that, though, if we don't see a full Jade committal from Coldhands here, which he's really thinking about, and rightly so, there might be the option for a clear here. You've got a Shadow Word Death. You can add 2 pings to that on either side, even without Raza. And then you can clear off both Jades, leave your opponent only with a 4-3. It would mean that the Druid can fit in 3 damage on this turn, which would bring them down to 11. And then another 4 and 5 would be 7. Oh, you could actually deliver lethal on the following turn with the
swipe and the hero power.
Yeah.
He is going to commit.
He goes for it anyway. I think it's probably worth it because I was thinking maybe there's a way you can kill off your opponent if you go with the more aggressive hero powers. But this gives you, I think, an almost guaranteed victory. Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything Ness can do from this point in time. Shadow of Death only clears up 1. He's still got a 2-mana hero power to work with. And I don't know if there's anything that Curious Limerroot can pick up. Maybe a Jade Behemoth, but even that's probably not going to be enough here for Ness. This feels like it is just Coldhands' game. Wrapped up and series.
It would have to be Spreading Plague, I think, exactly. Off the Curious Limerroot. You trade in both your minions, make 3... you make yourself 3 Scarabs, it buys you a turn, okay? And then you're in the same spot again. You can maybe get Raza off the top and start to whittle down your opponent's minions. I'm not going to try and do the maths right now and embarrass myself, but maybe if there is the perfect RNG from here on in, Ness has got a chance.
Well, he pinged first, so he doesn't have the opportunity, and he gets the swipe regardless. I don't think swipe's going to be enough for Ness. And Coldhands should secure the victory and should secure the series 3-0 as well. A great victory for Coldhands, and Ness still struggling.
Yeah, just checking if there's anything he can do. He can make it so it's not lethal on board, but obviously the hero power closes out the game. That's it. Coldhands takes a 3-0 victory. I was saying, Ness is known as a control and a priest player. Maybe he can bring out something really impressive to show us exactly how priest is done, but it was just performing so bad for him.
It was very, very anti-aggression, I feel, with double Galactic Crawler in most of his decks. Obviously, Highlander only running 1, but didn't find any value out of them. And again, though, they didn't get the maximum. The Rogue got that win early on. So again, maybe targeting the Rogue exactly from this lineup and just didn't get the opportunity to, because like you said, not all Conquest victories are created equal. We have the standings from this week's results. This is the complete